Previously,
It's with sylabdul.
The core of this, we're Snyder fans, and a lot of people probably a year or two ago was like, "Oh, hey, if Netflix would have bought Warner Brothers 2 years ago, I would have been like, oh, Zack's we're about to restore the Snyderverse."
Yeah.
Now, recently, if you saw those reports, Zack Snyder wanted to do that LA SWAT film, and Netflix basically didn't want to pay him enough to make the film.
Right.
While he has a first look deal exclusively with Netflix, and they were arguing about the or pushing back of the budget, and then Zack said, "I want to do the last photograph," and Netflix says, "We pass on that." I'm not feeling too good about the relationship. I mean, and that's just what I'm seeing as far as as a Snyder fan with Netflix. What do you think with that?
I agree, and that was my concerns from the beginning. I had people that were on Twitter responding to me like, "Why are you crashing out on this? This is good for Snyder fans." I'm like, no, it's not. Like, look at the writing on the wall. Like, what are you talking about? They're not. I haven't seen any Snyder productions on Netflix being promoted at all. You know, like, yeah, you can look at the little intricacies and stuff. I mean, of course, anything is possible. The relationship is still there. If Warner Brothers, whoever is the next owner of Warner Brothers, they want that IP to succeed, instead of rebooting getting rid of the Gunn and rebooting all over again, just finish the Snyderverse and then reboot after that properly. That might be the easiest way to just make a quick buck, right? Sure, they can do that, and they have a working relationship with him. But like you mentioned, it's based on the recent activities or inactivity. Yeah, that has me a little weary. Yeah,
I mean, we just had the Rebel Moon experience where they botch the R cuts of Rebel Moon. You had this superior Zack Snyder film, and you decided to put out the PG cuts, which again, I want to make sure I say this clear, because I know it's gonna be people commenting like, "So, like," you know, but
it was unnecessary. It's an unnecessary rollout.
I get though that you put the PG cut out first to get like more of the family to watch it, but the R cut should have been there like after a week or at most a month.
I would have just dropped both. A lot of people aren't even having kids anymore. People are alone, TV or whatever. The kids have their own network, or put the PG only on the kids network, and then like the kids channel that they have, and then you can put both of them on the adult channel profile.
It was like Zack Snyder, he was unchained on the Rebel Moon R cuts. Like, and you don't promote that. When they dropped those films, it was like 8 months after. Just again, for the Snyder part of it. If this deal closes with Netflix, I just feel if Zack gets a chance to do DC again, we're probably talking small screen with Netflix. And I just wonder.
Yeah, he's going. Zack is very handy. He's very adept in the industry and making friends and connections and capitalizing on certain moments. And he knows the studio system, because the studio system is hostile. So he knows how to navigate hostile waters.
Yeah. And
he knows how to navigate like the changes of administration and all this sort of stuff. So he's shown he can make it happen. I'm not worried about whether it will eventually happen. And what the concern I have is that, I guess the industry around it, really. I think that he's going to make the movie to the best of his ability and whatever he's given. I think creating a situation where the industry is as primed and good for him to make the best movie is good. And I don't think like a industry where Netflix owns Warner Brothers is going to, like, some people think of this as like a zero-sum game where it's like, oh, either Netflix buys it or he'll never make it, right?
Yeah, I don't believe that. Yeah.
No, it's like I just don't. Yeah, I don't think that's the case.
I don't know if people, as far as just DC fans in general, I don't know if they realize like how much this could be huge for just DC in general. And now as far as content, now as far as the Zack Snyder side, because again, if Paramount usurps this, then like I said, I think we're gonna get JO 2 and 3 in theaters. Like, I really believe that. Yeah. with Netflix, I'm leaning more towards, maybe he could do like a Nightmare series, because this could be a thing where Netflix will be like, okay, if it's Gunn and Safran still head of DC Studios, y'all do your DCU in theaters, we could do Elseworld stuff on Netflix.
On Netflix,
and like, why wouldn't you get Zack Snyder for that? Or other creators, to do different, like Del Toro. He wanted to do that Justice League Dark, back in the day. You could do Jail of Dark on Netflix, and so there's a lot of potential for tons of content, and everyone can kind of have their sandboxes, basically what I'm hearing. With if Netflix is to close this deal.
It's Coffee Talk with SylabDul. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe now.
Wake up in the morning, eyes crusty, heavy yawning. My phone keep going off, so I shut off the alarm and then head into the kitchen to get the coffee brewing. French roast with French vanilla, my own French revolution. Next movement is to tune into Coffee Talk with Sil. My girl starts to yap if I tell her she needs to chill. I hear enough of the yapping from all of these goofy shills. Plus I'm trying to be informed of whatever's the latest deal. For real.
Man, it's been a very interesting couple of days on social media, talking to CBM and Geek Talk. I guess pun intended, amazing Spider-Man leaks for Spider-Man Brand New Day. Man, if you caught the leaks, I mean, they're out there. Sony is striking down a lot of these videos, showing the footage. One thing that stood out to me, first off, become a Patreon, link in the description. Exclusive live streams. We're going to talk more in depth of Spider-Man Brand New Day and Avengers Doomsday as well. So amongst other topics, expanded topics over there on the Patreon. But man, if you got a chance to see this trailer, director Destin Daniel Cretton, this dude, this is the Shang-Chi guy, right? He may be giving us the greatest Spider-Man film ever. Like just based off of the leak. Again, we're going to be covering the rollout of this Spider-Man Brand New Day more extensively going forward. But Patreon, again, we're going to be doing a lot of exclusive coverage of the news. And, of course, what I'm hearing as well. I'm already stamping Spider-Man Brand New Day as a classic, instant classic. And more to come on that. And like I said, Avengers Doomsday, they're striking up those teaser trailers. For 2026, like I said, Marvel and Spider-Man, Avengers, they're taking the crown back. DC could come back in 2027 with Batman. So we got an update, or I guess more progress on this Netflix merge with Warner Brothers. Netflix and Warner Brothers, they're pretty much trying to win the visual battle. Showing heads of Netflix on the Warner Brothers lot, that just helps with public perception. And as they look to push this deal through the regulatory process. Now, going into 2026, we got to be very clear when we talk this business stuff, because, there's just going to be a separation of people who knows what they're talking about with this business. On my channel, I always was talking about DC and Warner Brothers, plus the business behind it. And just to be clear, I was, a part of that wave of geek content creators who was mixing more of the business talk with it. That just is what it is. And I'm always going to continue to do that. Obviously, I have my special interests, Snyderverse, DC, when Marvel is good and things like that. But we always fall back on the business when we talk about box office and all the numbers and everything. So with this merger, first off, there's a lot of people. Let's be clear from the beginning. We talked about Warner Brothers selling again on this platform for over 4 years, right? So we've always been in tune as far as with this day coming. Now the buyers have changed. Never expected Netflix to jump up, and get this like they're attempting to do. There's a lot of people there. They were doubting if Warner Brothers would sell. So, they're already just automatically eliminated from this conversation because you wasn't following the information like we were. So I'm just going to be systematically eliminating people who don't know what they're talking about. If they come across, my path of information, I'm not trying to seek out people and things like that, but just if you want to contradict, again, what's been ingrained on this platform for years, I got to let the public know. So that's one thing. Now, as I've made very clear, Paramount was my choice to successfully merge with Warner Brothers, and mostly for the theatrical side. And yes, the Saudis and things like that. But there's kind of some funny business with Paramount that we'll talk about in a moment. And how Paramount is kind of getting exposed each day. And again, we'll kind of cover that more. But the main thing is, I'm here to cover what's actually happening. And I'll first state as far as what's, reality. Then I can give my opinion on that reality. What I've said for these past several months, I said, I'm not going to allow people to warp reality. Not even in my comment section. You come in with, coming sideways with information and, again, spreading falsities. I'm just going to just instantly strike it down. So with that established, again, Warner Brothers is choosing Netflix. Paramount can't make them, right? Like, even if I want the Paramount deal, but they can't force Warner Brothers to take the deal. You have reports like this coming out from several different trades and online tipsters and stuff like that. Everyone is circling around Paramount saying Warner Brothers felt like the Ellisons, the David Ellison, head of Paramount Skydance, felt like he was misleading in the takeover bid for Warner Brothers. Zazev is completely against this Paramount deal. He rejected Paramount 3 or 4 times, and then, obviously accepted Netflix for a variety of reasons. Netflix is the cleaner merge. As I said before, even the bidding started on Warner Brothers, is that they were looking for a merge. This wasn't selling out. Again, I thought Paramount was it's on the surface appeared to be the better deal, but in hindsight and what's coming out now, seems like Paramount wasn't really keeping it real with Warner Brothers and their shareholders. And again, there's several articles out there, but just long story short, the funding that Paramount said that they had, the funds they claimed to have to purchase Warner Brothers, included other investors, right? We talked about the Saudis, the other Arab sovereign nations, Qatar, Abu Dhabi. Collectively, they were putting in over $20 billion towards the deal. And then you got other investors as well, too. The thing that didn't feel right about the bid, though, again, I liked when the Paramount leaked bid came out, we talked about the leak and, again, the Saudi connection. I was all on board. But a part of me, we had to honestly say, okay, if the Ellisons are loaded, they should, if it costs $70 billion to buy all of Warner Bros. Discovery, the Ellisons got it in the bag already. Like, why are you including all of these other bidders? Why can't you just come up with the money and you own all of Warner Bros. Discovery? And it wasn't really ringing a bell with me. I was just looking at the overall, like, hey, Paramount, buy Warner Brothers, and just selfishly, hey, Zack Snyder, Justice League 2 in theaters. I thought that would instantly happen because we've been following the Saudi connection all this calendar year, right? But it seems like Zazev and the Warner Bros. Discovery board, they were kind of feeling iffy about what Paramount and what the Ellisons was trying to, say, what they was trying to present. Like, y'all should have the money, right? Why are you relying on all these other nations? And because I figured this would be, including the Arab nations, that this was, to appease possibly the Trump administration, because Trump wants to see global business The whole CNN angle that Paramount could take over CNN and basically cover the president, I guess, nicer. But that's kind of backfired. The CBS coverage under Paramount, Trump called them out. So just long story short, Paramount's bid just pretty much fell apart. And it seems like weeks ago, Zaslav was like, nah, I'm not messing with Paramount. Not messing with the Ellisons. He ghosted David Ellison. So something didn't feel right. And then again, Paramount comes with this takeover bid. And again, this pushback, the shareholders of Warner Bros. Discovery have rejected the Paramount bid. And now more is coming out that maybe Paramount doesn't have the money available like we thought, like the Ellisons. Maybe they're not trying to back this with their own money for a reason.
If I sort of think back to what probably happened here, I think they thought they were going to walk in, buy this at $19 a share, not be terribly levered, not need outside money from the Middle East and elsewhere, that they were just going to buy this quickly and be done. And lo and behold, Warner's board starts an auction process and there's bids from competing companies and they have to start stretching.
Because maybe they don't have it. It doesn't make sense, but something is not adding up with the Paramount bid, and that's what Zaslav and the board of Warner Bros. Discovery pretty much called out. So those who still hoping, and yeah, like I said, I was hoping Paramount won, and I was just going off the information that was made available, and I was like, oh, easily pick Paramount. But Zaslav and the team who looked closely at the numbers and the bidding, something wasn't right. See, Zaslav's entire plan for Warner Bros. Discovery was to split the company with the studio and streaming side, which now Netflix, has made a deal to purchase. And then you had the cable channels and Discovery side, which they were looking to, again, spin out and possibly sell that separately. Zaslav's main thing with this, just to make this clear to people, was to separate the companies and to, again, make as much money selling them separately. Paramount was trying to low bid the entire time to buy everything together. Paramount has undervalued the cable TV assets, understandably so. It's not as profitable as it used to be, but it's not as cheap as Paramount was trying to spin it. So again, long story short, Zaslav is getting about $80 billion from Netflix, ultimately, for the studio streaming side, and then they possibly can get more billions from the cable TV assets separately. So if the studio streaming side of Warner Brothers Discovery is worth $80 billion, Paramount was saying the cable TV side is worth less than $20 billion, but Zaslav likely could get upwards of $25 billion or more just for the cable TV side, and he already is getting $80+ billion from the studio streaming side. So again, Paramount, if they're not going to up their bid, they're not going to be taken seriously. And it looks like Zaslav and again the Warner Bros. Discovery board are not taking Paramount seriously, and they are fielding offers to get the maximum value. So if people are confused why, Paramount is being kind of discarded, it's just they didn't come correct with their bid. And if someone's trying to sell something, you don't tell them the price. Like, you could say, this is how much I'm offering for it. But when they're saying they want more money for it, you can't force them to accept your lower offer. That is what it is. Those who feel like they know about all this stuff with Paramount and their bid and the holes in their offers, definitely let me know in the comments below. I would love to go more in depth. So that brings us back to, again, the company that Warner Brothers is saying we accept the Netflix offer. Like, again, Warner Brothers can decide for themselves who they want to sell to. It's a little pretentious and pompous by Paramount and David Ellison to be like, no, you're going to take our lower offer. Like, come on, bro. But anyway, that is what it is. We're back to the Netflix side of this. which again, initially it was a shock to me that Netflix would step up. But with Netflix, people are saying, well, okay, even if Warner Brothers chose Netflix, Netflix has to go through the regulatory process and they're going to be denied because this is a monopoly, blah, 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 right? One of the arguments, which I thought was a really good argument, and I was surprised how many people kind of mocked my optimism actually in Netflix argument to obtain Warner Brothers to merge with them. One argument people said was, hey, Netflix is the number one streamer in the world. HBO Max, which is part of the deal that they're buying, HBO Max is number 3 in the world. And so you merge, 1 and 3, you got a bigger market share than any streamer, right? Any premium streamer out there. Netflix pushed back and say, hey, y'all looking at it like it's just, Netflix, Disney Plus, HBO Max, et cetera, just these, premium streaming services. Like that's all that's available for online entertainment. Netflix says, no, we're up against people like YouTube and TikTok. And if you look at the amount of eyes, we're just an online provider, we're just an online entertainment platform. That's what Netflix, they presented this to the WBD board. And it was like, people are looking at it like, like we're not all just online entertainment platforms like YouTube, like TikTok, like Facebook. Netflix is like, we're among all that, and more eyes are on YouTube, more eyes are on TikTok. So it's really not a monopoly. We're just trying to catch up. We're losing attention to these other platforms. I thought it was an amazing argument, right? I was like, okay, Netflix may have a chance to push this through. Now, behind the scenes, Netflix has been talking with the Trump administration, with other regulatory people before Warner Bros. Agreed to the deal. And according to the rumors out there and the chatter out there, is that Netflix was convincing people strategically before they made their bid to Warner Brothers. Basically, Netflix was testing the water, saying, showing them evidence like, hey, do you think this will pass? Do you think we have a good argument? And pretty much unanimously, the people they talked to, Netflix felt like they had to go to push this through, to present an argument. So once I learned about that, I was like, Netflix really has a shot, in my opinion. Again, people kind of struck it down. But then you start seeing some recent movements. One thing here, that YouTube is in the business to try to get TV programming streamed exclusively on YouTube. Now, keep in mind, YouTube, they've had I believe they had like an exclusive NFL game to start the season, which is interesting. What's the difference between a game streaming on YouTube or Netflix? You got YouTube built into smart TVs now. And with the business that YouTube is trying to do, now they got the Oscars coming up in a couple years. That was normally a linear TV type programming. Well, now you got YouTube again. They already got the NFL game, just like Netflix got the Christmas NFL game. So this is supporting the argument. All Netflix is saying is we're all just online entertainment platforms, and our competition isn't just Disney Plus and HBO Max, etc. Is YouTube and TikTok. And now you got, again, YouTube doing some big business, getting what used to be just made for TV programming and NFL games exclusive. So again, this supports the Netflix argument. And again, I'm not going to take seriously people who's like, oh no, they just automatically want to favor one side. Netflix wasn't my pick, right? My videos are still up where I'm like, oh, Saudis, right? But I deal with reality and I present reality, and then I'll give my opinion about reality. But the facts are the facts here. When you're talking about, again, the Oscars, when you're talking about NFL programming, YouTube is a direct competitor with Netflix. Case closed. And this is what Netflix is going to present to the regulatory process. Another example, too, as Netflix is saying here, starting next year, they're going to have exclusive video versions of specific podcasts. Now, what's interesting about this is the Breakfast Club and the Joe and Jada show in particular they were streaming directly to YouTube for this past year, and Breakfast Club, they were posting clips on YouTube for years. Now Netflix is saying we got the exclusive video versions of these podcasts, taking them away from YouTube. Again, showing the direct competition between Netflix and YouTube. And this is, again, what Netflix has been arguing. I thought they raised a good argument. Now you're seeing tangible results of the direct competition. I'm leaning towards Netflix will close it. So what does that mean, right? What does that mean? The core of this platform is, has always been about DC, and of course, Snyderverse related as well, CBM Geek overall. But Netflix, they launched this new website, and Netflix WBtogether.com, right? Very nice, wholesome URL. Netflix is going all in, right? They feel they have this, they agreed to this deal with Warner Bros. Discovery. They believe this is going to pass through. They feel they have a great argument to get past this regulatory process. And we've seen evidence again that Netflix, supporting their argument, Netflix is in direct competition with YouTube and vice versa. So they're presenting the imagery that, hey, we're going to get this deal closed. It's going to pass. Let's start presenting what this partnership will mean. Now, the first thing that a lot of people took notice of on this website, it says defining the next century of storytelling together. You have that Netflix Warner Brothers symbol together, and I believe in all intents and purposes, they're going to maintain that it's two entities and we're working together. Now, just on paper, Netflix will own Warner Brothers studios and streamings. But they want to maintain that branding of Warner Brothers, of HBO, DC, etc. And then behind that image of Netflix and Warner Brothers, people are pointing out, hey, this is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Behind there's a lot of different arguments of is that true? Is this really, can it be Justice League? Long story short, it's cool to see DC up front and center and showing Justice League, DC, and Snyderverse. That has a lot of people thinking, hey, because right under it, you see the Justice poster, right? So you have it appears to be the ZSJL image. And then right under it, you have the Justice League poster. What is it? Does this mean something or nothing at all? I believe they just took a bunch of images. They wanted some memorable stuff. Netflix is just showing this is all the stuff we can wield in our hand now. We already have our own IPs, but now we're going to get Harry Potter, DC, Friends, etc. That's how I take it. Some can take it like, hey, they're just going to restore the Snyderverse day one. I don't believe that. But as far as like they're going to clean house on DC, and then they're going to do all just Zack Snyder only DC, I don't believe that. Now, we'll talk more about the James Gunn angle and what this means for DC Studios in a moment. But as far as just this image alone, I'm not in the business of just getting people's hopes up just, for my biased views. And especially if it's something that I'm really biased about, I want to make sure it's sure before I try to get people's hopes up. Zack Snyder has been posting a lot of DC on his Instagram, and just going off of the history of following Zack Snyder, of being a fan of his works, conversing with the Snyder fandom as I have for years now. It means something, I believe, that Zack is so active posting DC, right? Because we've been through this before with the release of Snyder Cut days. So that does mean something to me, no matter who was going to buy Warner Brothers. And so that hasn't changed, in my opinion. But just my opinion with this picture here, I'm not reading too much into this. But it is nice to see that Netflix is, again, posting Zack Snyder related stuff. Now, again, Netflix, they're looking at it like, this is about getting this content, this Warner Brothers content and all the brands that come with it. This is a huge slam dunk for just Netflix business wise, and really the perfect merger circumstances for Warner Brothers. I thought Amazon would be a good option as well, but again, Amazon, they're just trying to get their foot off the ground with the MGM Studios acquisition, and Amazon's going to, I think, make a pretty good splash with Voltron and James Bond, and they just wasn't ready. I think this was a year probably too early for Amazon to get into this bidding. Because again, I thought that would have been a great partnership with Warner Brothers, but Netflix, as I said, making great even greater. As fans of Warner Brothers and their beloved brands, we want to preserve and expand on what makes them special. And that's including DC. And I guess more on that in a moment. Netflix is saying we're fully committed to releasing Warner Brothers films in theaters with a traditional window. Now, this is interesting. They're saying this. What is your traditional window? It's not 90 days. It's about 45 days now or less. So Netflix is a little wiggle room that they're talking about with theaters, but we'll see. Actions will speak louder than anything right now. They say we plan to make sure HBO continues to create the prestige television shows that fans know and love. And with our global reach across 190 plus countries, we expect that these stories reach an even larger audience. HBO is going to be huge. There's going to be a huge hub on Netflix. Because leading up to this time, HBO Max, they were struggling trying to get clearance to enter other countries with HBO Max. They've been trying to expand, and it really was like, HBO Max has expanded as far as it could because of these global footprints. They couldn't get through a lot of regulatory things, a lot of red tape, putting HBO Max globally. Netflix already has its foothold, as I said, in nearly 200 countries. Netflix is a streaming king, over 300 million subscribers worldwide. HBO Max doesn't even have a half of that worldwide. Disney Plus is under 200 million. So Netflix has the largest reach. You put HBO programming, the Penguin series, the It Welcome to Derry, House of Dragons, Last of Us, all these things that HBO, and they're going to do even more stuff. The HBO brand is a major thing. And Netflix, as they're saying here, we're not trying to, cancel out HBO. As far as what's being said out there is that HBO Max will still be it can still be available separately. But they are going to integrate like an HBO hub in Netflix along with DC. Again, I'm really excited for the prospects of DC. But so Netflix is just saying we're going to amplify the reach. Now, what does that mean? Obviously, the price of Netflix is definitely going to go up. Again, one price that I heard is $39.99 will be one of the price points. And just quite honestly, if you're getting Netflix and HBO Max together, pretty much, that's a pretty good deal. And then the new content Netflix will create, specifically with DC, Yeah, I will be ready to pay that, whatever they're asking. Again, kudos to Netflix. They're pushing this narrative. Again, you're trying to sell the public, make everyone comfortable with this partnership of Netflix and Warner Brothers. You got this automatic reaction to some people saying, again, there's some monopoly going on. But if we're going to keep it real, if Paramount would have won the bid for Warner Brothers, it would have been what they call synergies. You have multiple film execs. You don't need all of them, so someone has to go, right? Just an example. Well, with Netflix doesn't have theatrical film execs. Warner Brothers does. So you aren't replacing too many people's jobs. Netflix has their own streaming and original programming execs. HBO Max has their own, and Netflix is saying publicly, "Hey, we want HBO to keep doing what they're doing." Now, do I believe they're going to keep absolutely everyone on the theatrical side and the streaming side? No, but you're going to have less loss of jobs with this merger of Netflix and Warner Brothers than what you would have had with Paramount and Warner Brothers, for example. As they say, Netflix and Warner Brothers have complementary businesses. Good choice of words there. Which is why we plan to continue operating them independently with the teams that currently run them. Now, this kind of takes us to the James Gunn conversation, which we'll have in just a moment. Again, what does this mean for DC Studios? But Netflix is telling you right now that, hey, we're complementary. Warner Bros. Has the film side sewed up, and we're going to allow them to run independently. This is what they're saying. So this means, obviously, DeLuca, Abdi, they already got their extension, multi-year extension. DeLuca and Abdi will be there at least to 2028 and beyond, likely. James Gunn, Peter Safran, they have their extension. It is only till like close to mid of 2027. Basically, right before Man of Tomorrow comes out. I believe there's going to be some sort of restructuring with DC Studios. Right. And we'll kind of get to that in a moment. But it's been made clear to me that Netflix wants in on making original DC content. We're talking about live action films just straight to Netflix, live action series, animated series on Netflix. They want to produce these things. They want DC events pretty much every year on Netflix. Now, what does that mean for theatrical DC? Well, again, they're telling you here, hey, Warner Brothers, they have their own teams around Warner Brothers Pictures, New Line Cinema, Warner Brothers Animation, DC Studios, right, etc. So, yes, those teams will remain intact, but also, too, there likely is going to be some kind of, again, restructuring of DC Studios where Netflix is going to be like, hey, these are ideas that we're going to do straight to streaming. Y'all handle y'all theatrical side. You're what they call blockbuster films. Netflix feels that what DC Studios is doing as far as with Superman and what's coming up with Supergirl, obviously the Reeves Batman stuff, they feel that's like blockbuster films. You put them in theaters, and then, hey, you only could watch this on Netflix, 30 days later. Now, what's going to be interesting is the physical media side of this. That is going to be interesting. Netflix wants in on DC productions. So it just has to be like maybe it'd be like a streaming DC exec that's going to handle all the things that goes to Netflix. And then if it's Gunn and Safran still on the theatrical side, let them, allow them to continue to do that. But I just feel it has to be some kind of shuffle. And again, will they decide to keep Gunn and Safran? You may not need to keep both of them or either of them with this. So that remains to be seen. But yes, I definitely, once this deal officially closes, Netflix, as Zaz was saying, they're already starting the regulatory process. So they're trying to get this done as soon as possible, next year. And then you'll see, I feel it'll be some sort of restructuring of DC. So again, as far as Netflix is saying they're creating and protecting jobs, a lot of people are saying this is confirming Warner Bros. Pictures and Netflix will continue to operate separately. That's true, independently, with James Gunn and Peter Safran remaining in charge of DC Studios. And you have a lot of people who are fans of, of these execs celebrating, and saying they're there. But again, their contract is only to 2027. And that was Zaz's decision to say, hey, but again, I believe because there's going to be some type of restructuring, even if they stay. But, just to be honest, like, I don't feel that's like some ultimate vote of confidence that you only gave them a 6-month extension to 2027, because it literally was published that DeLuca and Abdi got their extensions beyond 2027. So, again, those who saying, well, Gunn and Safran, they aren't allowed to get their extension because of this impending Netflix, purchase, then how did DeLuca and Abdi get their extension, again, beyond 2027? So we'll keep our eyes on that, but this is obviously is no guarantee that Gunn and Safran will be extended. We'll see what happens when apparently there's going to be some kind of restructuring of how DC as a brand will be handled going forward. Again, Netflix was very interested, just like Paramount and anyone that bidded on Warner Brothers. One of the key components was owning DC. So just to make this clear, Netflix didn't buy Warner Brothers and with the prospects of owning DC just to allow them to, okay, you just keep doing DC how you want to do it. Netflix wants in, and we'll see what that means. We'll see what that means for Gunn and Safran, right? Speaking of James Gunn and in connection with Zack Snyder, interesting post, a collab post from Zack Snyder and James Gunn on Instagram. We know Zack's been very, again, active on Instagram, posting DC-related things and also just his past projects, 300, Rebel Moon, etc. Obviously, the DC stuff has the biggest pop because DC, is popular worldwide. And the stuff that Zack Snyder has done, of course, you have the detractors of Zack Snyder, but the reach was obvious as far as what Zack Snyder was doing with DC compared to what DC has done since Zack has been gone. The Batman stuff, the Reeves Batman, that's the only thing that's made comparable money, to what Zack Snyder, the things that Zack Snyder touched. I think you obviously can contribute success of films like Aquaman in theaters because of, again, it was connected, loosely, but it was part of the DCEU, right? So it was successful. When you step outside the DCEU, what has been successful for DC under Warner Brothers? Only the Reeves Batman stuff. And that's only one film. But when Zack was doing DC, Man of Steel is still the most profitable Superman film ever. Still standing. And obviously BVS, obviously is a major success on the big screen and on the small screen. So now you have this post by Zack Snyder after posting all of this different DC stuff, his past stuff. It's in conjunction with James Gunn. That this, is this trying to present some kind of truce between the fandoms?
A truce, Bruce.
Like, is that the purpose of this post? Zack and James Gunn, they had that picture inside Warner Brothers office, not too long ago, right? And they got people talking, But then you have two sides of this where they're attacking the other creator. Like you have the antis for Zack Snyder, who is constantly pushing James Gunn stuff as superior, and vice versa. You have Snyder fans who feel they feel like that's their identity to have to attack James Gunn every day, which I really never understand that. But some of James Gunn's stuff, like, is it ultimately for me? I think it's a lot of goofy stuff, and it's it's funny to make fun of that at times and make light of it, but also too, I made it clear of the stuff that I enjoy from James Gunn. Guardians 3 is one of them. And his Superman film, I think, is still entertaining overall. So I am looking forward to what he's going to accomplish with Man of Tomorrow. But I seem to be a part of the minority of people who can look at both sides of these creators and say, oh, okay, I enjoy this. I mostly enjoy, obviously, the Zack Snyder stuff. So is Zack Snyder and James Gunn, are they trying to initiate some kind of truce between the fandoms? Well, I think it's ultimately wishful thinking because I don't see, again, you have these antis of Zack Snyder. They follow Snyder fans online all the time, posting disparaging things and criticizing everything Zack Snyder does. I don't see them stopping. Could it be a handful of reasonable people? Possibly. I run across some of them. But then also there's obvious trolling from Gunn fans, directly at Snyder fans. And as I mentioned with Snyder fans, it's always odd to me. Some of them talk about James Gunn more than James Gunn fans. So it's like, I don't see any kind of peaceful resolution with the fandom, but this just gives me a chance to reiterate on my platform is that there's a mix in viewerships. There's people that enjoy both of these creators. And I do have, some viewers who are mostly James Gunn fans and they didn't like Zack Snyder's take at all. As long as they remain respectful, everyone can have their opinions, but there's no reason to bash the other side. So my thing is just that this gives me opportunity to, again, just say, hey, you really don't have to be stalking the other side of the aisle of this constantly. If you really don't like James Gunn, the best thing you could do is just not really talk about him so much. I mean, people will have their joke posts and things like I'm going to continue to do that. It's stuff that I make fun of, but I'm not going to be obsessed with, trying to discredit James Gunn or misrepresent, information to try to make him look bad. And I don't know. I mean, it's not for me to tell people what they should do, but just on this platform, again, that's my approach. And if I actually like something that James Gunn does, I don't, I have no problem voicing that. And, obviously I want Zack Snyder to do more DC. So, I feel that's a normal approach. And that is what it is. And let's really kind of address this. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, right? But it seemed like leading up to Superman, James Gunn Superman, that a lot of people felt that James Gunn Superman had to fail so that he can be fired, and then they'll rehire Zack Snyder and restore everything. Like, I never bought into that, and I mean, that wasn't true. I felt, again, Zack Snyder could do more DC again, whether James Gunn is successful or not. That's where I stood with that, and that's the reality of it. Now that James Gunn Superman has done the numbers that it's done, people want to dispute how much or how little it really made. It's on the books, the profit that James Gunn Superman made. Again, Netflix looks at James Gunn Superman as a blockbuster film. They are not being forced to say that. That's just like, again, if Netflix said, "Oh, Mickey 17 was a blockbuster," or Alto Nights was, they would be lying. right? So it's no reason to lie about the profits of that. Now, again, if we accept the numbers, just like Netflix has accepted the numbers of James Gunn's Superman, yes, it's true. Still, Man of Steel is still the most profitable Superman film. That's okay. That's the reality as well. But just those who are saying like, "Oh, this has to fail," and "Oh, since it made less than Man of Steel, everyone will be fired." That's just not necessarily true. And in fact, right now, with the state of the James Gunn DCU, is that they feel that they've established a floor level, a ground level of the DCU with James Gunn's Superman. And they're like, okay, we want to build up from that. But also, too, we got Supergirl coming out in 2026, Clayface, which is a low budget DC horror film. Both of those films are not expected just initially to make as much as James Gunn's Superman. Now, I was of the opinion, Supergirl's going to be huge. They're going to really come out and market it great, and everything, right? And then I had my thoughts of that first trailer. Though I feel Millie Alcock will be amazing in the film, and the trailer, definitely didn't disappoint from that aspect, that she will perform well. The overall presentation of the film, I don't know if it's going to be big enough. And just like I heard about the potential Superman box office, months before Superman came out, I was talking about box office expectations. I know people, forget. People forget, the information. People want to have selective amnesia when I put information out there. It's stuff that they probably don't agree with, So I get it. I get the game with that. But I made it very clear on my platform. I think I went to other platforms saying what I was hearing about the Superman box office months before it came out, about expectations. See, when we talk about the business behind this stuff, I've been doing this for several years now, where we hear like early forecasts of things, sometimes a year in advance, definitely months in advance. So I put it out there. James Gunn Superman, their magic number was 500 million. That was confirmed. And I said they will be happy with a box office between 500 and 600 million. They'll throw a parade. And you saw Zazzle doing victory laps because James Gunn Superman got 614 million. So now, like I said, I put it out there. It's very clear. You can agree, disagree all you want. Those numbers held up, what I was told. Now, early rumblings with Supergirl that, I know reading is hard for select few people, but early forecasts of box office is a thing. Like, it's stuff, it could be almost a year in advance at times. You will start to try to dictate the market share of films. So this isn't anything new. Just like, again, I said with Superman, this isn't anything new, what we're saying with Supergirl. Now, early, and yeah, definitely way too early forecast, but again, early forecast for Supergirl is they're not expecting this to make as much as Superman. This is what I'm telling you. Now, what does this mean? Just like with Superman, if it would have came out and blew away the expectations, just like Minecraft, no one expected Minecraft to be $1 billion film or close to it. It came out, it did what it did, it exploded. Superman could have done it. It could have came out and exploded, but it did the market share that they expected. They counted it as a win. Supergirl, what I'm telling you in advance is that they're not expecting the same output of James Gunn's Superman. So that's the first thing. That's the first thing. Now, am I guaranteeing, it's going to make less than Black Adam? No, I'm not guaranteeing that. I'm saying in clear English, Supergirl could possibly finish less than Black Adam, meaning it probably can get a little more. Maybe it can get over 400 million. That's still Black Adam territory, right? I think that's clear. But what I'm saying is, if Supergirl comes out and makes less than 500 million, WB will count it as a win if it has the critical audience success. So if Supergirl comes out, no matter what it does, if the critics like it, and if the audience score is there, they will count this as a win. Just like with James Gunn's Superman, you had the cinema score, because again, a lot of people were commenting on how audience score works. They had no idea. They had agendas both ways with this. And so we got a test run on how I cover this stuff. And I've been covering this for years. It just, with Superman, everyone just kind of lost their minds for some reason. But audience score is a sort of currency for these films. And Superman made the cut. Then they had the critical and then the Rotten Tomatoes audience score as well. So that's clear. If Supergirl replicates this, and again, they only, according to what they're going to be putting out there, they didn't spend as much on Supergirl as they did with Superman. So you're looking at a lower budget. What could be their break-even point? I think they're going to try to say 300, just like Superman. I was saying their number was 500. Supergirl, I believe they're going to push, their number is going to be around 300, and they may slide it up to 350 or something like that. So just you can take that, and then we'll revisit that next summer, right? That's how we did with Superman. Now, again, you don't have to, I guess you don't have to agree with the numbers that they put out there, but that's the numbers they're going to put out there. So that's why I said, if it even finishes under Black Adam, they'll be happy with that critical audience success. Now, if the critics don't like Supergirl, then yeah, that would be, they would consider that some kind of L. James Gunn and James Gunn influenced films usually score with the critics. Now, this is a Craig Gillespie film, Supergirl, and I believe it's going to be a quality film. I just hope they market this a little better. Again, and I put my concerns out there as far as the trailer, and so we'll see. As I said here, James Gunn will ultimately be judged on Man of Tomorrow 2027, and that would just need to duplicate Superman 2025 performance. So again, the formula: critical audience success, and whatever number they put on the books, if it's the same or similar target number, Man of Tomorrow likely have to do over 500 million for them to feel comfortable. We'll see the real budget for that, and we'll be covering that in real time, Man of Tomorrow. But if all these markers hit, if Supergirl, no matter how much or little it makes, has that critical audience success, and Man of Tomorrow duplicates Superman 2025, then Netflix likely will roll with that DC story for theatrical going forward. And just in layman's terms, that means James Gunn, he will be able to do more of his Superman saga, expand the DC world. Netflix would either in conjunction do some of the series on Netflix, and then also too, Netflix will be doing its own DC stuff as well. Like, you can call it Elseworlds or however you want to put it. Netflix will have their own ideas, and just this expansive theatrical world of DCU. As long as Gunn is hitting these markers, I see that continuing, theatrically. I don't think that's too hard to grasp with that. So we're just putting it out there as far as, what we're hearing early here, and we'll see how this matches up. As I said recently on social media, let's say James Gunn, he hits those markers and Netflix wants to keep him around. I think he would be smart to already get Zack Snyder in there for a nightmare film, Nightmare Justice League, And I think theatrical, it should be a thing. Elseworld story. It is really no reason for this not to happen. I think at the very least, you can get a Nightmare series on Netflix, possibly. I believe Zack Snyder's going to do DC again. That's just what I strongly feel. I've been told that constantly for the last couple of years, and no matter who's going to buy Warner Brothers. So that's been a thing. We'll just see, I guess, where Zack Snyder's DC will end up. Will it be just a small screen thing, or can we get the big screen with that? But with Gunn, without Gunn, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. And we'll just see when Zack Snyder when we ultimately just see the fruition of this activity Zack Snyder has been doing with DC, posting all this stuff on Instagram. That's giving us all flashbacks to 2019. What will become of that? We shall see. We'll see how this all lines up.